Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Battle Royale podcast. Today's lesson is, which I think I've got the complete wrong bloody name there. I'm your host as always, Edward Jones, and joining me of course is my co-host, the Professor, Mr. Stephen Palmer.
Hello everybody.
And tonight we're joined once again by a very special guest all the way from Baltimore and French Toast Sunday. It's the one and only Mr. Nick Rehak.
Oh, thank you very much, sir. How are you guys doing?
We're doing good. Thank you for obviously joining us and coming on to discuss Battle Royale. I obviously have to ask, as we do with everyone who comes on the show, I mean, what's your sort of history with the film? Is this something that you hunted down when it came out, or is it something you sort of stumbled into through sort of word of mouth?
I stumbled into it through word of mouth. Senior year of high school, so this is like '07, I had heard of a film like this. I'm like, it's pretty wild. Someone's like, yeah, it's banned in America. Like, we'll never see it. I'm like, oh, okay. So it would just be like murmurs on like message boards and things. And then my second year in college, so let's say, was that '08 into '09, somewhere in there, I somehow got my hands on a bootleg DVD copy of it. So it was like YouTube, like quality wasn't like obviously the clearest thing. But I remember watching it and being like astounded. I'm like, this is great. I'm like, I want more of this kind of thing. And then, like 10 years ago? I can't remember when, but the Blu-ray box set came out here on the stateside. I immediately nabbed it up. And everyone's like, yeah, it's the first time it's been in the States. I'm like, maybe legally.
Yeah.
But I was very excited when it came out. And anytime I get a chance to, people are always like, man, I need something action-packed. I'm like, well, I've got the movie for you.
Definitely so. I mean, it's so weird because as we talked about on many of the times on our other show, the Asian Cinema Film Club, that over here in Britain, I mean, obviously it comes out in 2000 and sparks this whole cultural revolution in reviving the interest in Asian cinema, and obviously for you guys in the States, because of, the climate that you have, obviously, with the amount of high school shootings and other issues regarding sort of gun crime and violence, and just sort of kept getting pushed back. And I think I can't help but think that you got us back by delaying Snowpiercer till, well, this year. So we finally got to see Snowpiercer.
That still blows my mind.
I know, and it was all because of one Weinstein. He just threw his toys out the pram, and as part of him being locked up for being the scumbag that he is, we finally got it released. So, but I mean, the way the studio systems work constantly astounds me. I mean, you look at Underwater, that was completed in 2017, only now released in 2020 because Disney decided to clear the shelves of Fox. So, and that's another good movie that people should be talking more about, but they're not. So maybe when we finish this,
That's always how it's going to go.
Sorry?
Wait, Underwater, are you talking about the most recent
the most
one? The one with, what's her name? Kristen
Yes.
Stewart?
And Vincent Cassel.
Really? I didn't know it was hanging out for that long.
Yeah, it was. It's on the shelf since 2017, much like Cabin in the Woods. And Cabin in the Woods only sort of came out because of 4. That they basically was like, oh, what else have we got with this guy? And then they sort of dusted Cabin in the Woods out and brought that out. So it's just the darndest thing that when you think of that studios invest money into making something and then just leave it on a shelf.
Yeah, and then it just sits. And then it makes you wonder what else they have on the shelf, starring who and what. And
I mean, it happens all over. So, we'll bring it back to our Asian cinema, Elwood. Film, Il Mare, French title, but it's a Korean film. Really was part of the sort of the Korean wave back in the early 2000s. Really popular film, huge star in it, or a couple of huge actors in it, but wasn't going to be released on the shelf. And then the lead actress starred in My Sassy Girl, which then became a huge pan-Asian hit. And they said, "Oh, we can release this film now," and it was it was another huge hit as well, and indeed got a Sandra Bullock remake in America, but they weren't going to release that because I guess the money that you make, the money that you spend making a film, it is still only 50% or 60% of what you spend in total with all the publicity. You know, we always talk about how much a film costs to make. Well, that's maybe 50-60% of it. It always seems that the 40% of the cost is absolutely in the marketing and in the distribution. So maybe sometimes if you're not gonna, it's cutting your losses, isn't it? If you just don't think it's going to work, you're better off losing 50 million quid than investing another 60.
Yeah, and then if it just so happens, like you said, with Thor and Chris Hemsworth, then you release a movie like that. Well, you really don't need to say a whole lot about it or advertise it a whole lot because people will find it if they like that actor or actress.
Yeah, indeed.
It's often the films.
That's crazy.
It's often these films that just go out there and completely shatter our conceptions of what filmmaking is. I mean, obviously, when you look at what Cameron Wood did for horror films and just basically turn everything on its head, playing
Absolutely
the tropes in much the way that we saw with Scream. So it's just a shame. And then we sit around wondering, so like, oh, why is there no more films like this? And it's like, well, because we had this film sitting on the shelf for like 3 years. Nobody thought that we should be making more of these. So. But obviously back to Battle Royale. I mean, obviously tonight's episode, Life is a Game, we're on the second half of the classroom visit. On our previous episodes, we obviously have seen our class rounded up, and on the previous episode, they got the very much rude awakening that the necklaces around them actually do work, as we saw with poor Nobu, who got his throat blown out, or if you're reading the book, got his head blown off, which probably doesn't help with proving the necklaces work too much. But the game is very much afoot, even if we're still in the classroom. Katana is very much in control of the situation. He's already eliminated 2 of our class, and as now we move into the second half of his orientation, and which we're reintroduced to everyone's favourite perky orientation girl, as she now explains the rules of Battle Royale. In particular, the bags which are now going to be handed out, and which will provide all the class with a much more level playing field, as when we look at many of these classes, they're all sort of athletic sort of stars and very sort of got a much more advantage over certain members of the class. So by handing out these bags, it's the idea being that it will level the playing field by giving them not only supplies, a flashlight, compass, map, but also a weapon, which may be something good like a shotgun or a machine gun, or something rather naff like a pan lid or a paper fan.
Binoculars.
So obviously when we look at the sort of class here, I mean, Stephen, I mean, you've mentioned on previous episodes the fact that none of them seem to have a clue what's actually going on with the Battle Royale Act. They all sort of stumble into this situation despite the fact that this isn't the first time the Act's been in place. They've been numerous games before, and yet they're looking a little shell-shocked. So would you say that it's at this point that the reality of the situation has finally sunk in for these idiots?
I think it has. They've just seen 2 of their colleagues, classmates, murdered. One with a knife to the forehead, and one with his bangling go off. Suddenly, we are, it's very real to them, and in that sort of second half of showing that orientation video, I get the sense they're paying a bit more attention, because actually, there's a whole bunch of rules you need to now understand. It's about they get told about the sectors, and they get told about that everyone's going to know what they're doing, and they seem to be paying a lot more attention. And then and then the bags get bought in, and I guess at that point for them it suddenly becomes very real.
Yeah, I mean, it turns into like the world's worst Secret Santa. So, I mean, Nick, obviously in regards to how the game sort of set out, the rules and that, I mean, how did you find the actual sort of setup of this game? Because, I mean, they could very much done like every other sort of Battle Royale movie and just dump them in random locations and have them sort of fend for themselves. But obviously in this game, they're brought together in a classroom and then sort of released one by one with their bags. I mean, how did you find the sort of setup for this particular Battle Royale? Because it's obviously not the first time we've seen this before.
I really liked it because it's controlled. It's, hey, we're going to tell everybody what's going on, and off you go. And once they're gone, it creates this tension, too, and this dread. Every person that's last they got to be thinking in their head, okay, here's what I'm going to do, here's how I'm going to survive. And immediately everybody that's out, they're either going to get a great defensive position or they're going to maybe take an offensive position and just start plucking people off at the beginning so they can live. I mean, I believe it was just the scene prior when you got the kid saying, hey, if I win, do I get to go home? And he's like, yeah. And then immediately everybody was like, oh, we need to get better at this. We need to do something to get out of here. I've always liked it, but at the same time, I do like I wish some things weren't told to them, like the idea of like, hey, these are the danger zones. It would have been nice if they got on the speakers and they were like, oh yeah, don't go here because it's a danger zone. And I'd be like, wait, what's going on? What's going to happen? I think that would add a little bit more. But at the same time, I do like that they tell you like, yeah, don't go over here. But it also it never really happens. We never really see anything. So it's almost like, why even bring it up if we're not going to be shown? Was it like a Chekhov's gun? You know what I mean? It's like a Chekhov's danger zone. We never see anybody get zapped because they're not where they're supposed to be.
Certainly so. I mean, in regards to the danger zones, they come more into play in both the book and the manga. There's more mention that they sort of linger in the danger zones, but again, nobody's getting their head blown off by sort of hanging around in these areas. But I think it's just more because people are just, if you don't have this, then the audience will go, well, if I was in this game, I'll just go and hide off on this far end of the island. And just camp out there and wait this whole thing out over. Whereas by having the danger zones, you're essentially being forced into the center point of the island. So you're being pushed into fighting whether you want. So you either at that point become either hunter or prey. And it's surprising as well that when we mention this idea of that you get to go home if you can survive the game, is this an obtainable sort of brass ring? Do we think?
I think yes and no. I think they don't want them to. They want them to see the humanity in themselves and go, well, these are my friends. These are I like most of these people. I'm going to try to survive it out and be a team. But they do have that caveat of, well, no one can, it can only be one. If you're stuck, then you're all going to die at the same time. So it does have that like moral conundrum in there, and they're trying to figure out like. They're testing them in a way because all the rules came in place because, kids were rebelling, kids were acting out. So they're like, fine, we're just going to start killing you off. And because of their attitudes, what brought them there, that realistically is what should save them. But if they kind of showed the opposite of like, no, we're actually good-hearted and there's, purpose there, then maybe they won't. But, later on in the film, we kind of see what's going on, what's really happening. So, but I'd like to think it's attainable, like it's doable.
And Stephen, I mean, you obviously mentioned previously about the lack of family connection here that these kids have. I mean, obviously, they're told that their parents are aware of the situation, which is just blows your mind. It's sort of like, oh yeah, little Jimmy's been sent off this island, has completed a Battle Royale, might be coming home in a body bag, just to let you know. Bye.
Yeah, yeah. It's a weird promise to make in the confines of this film and the characters that we know, because we know, for example, Shuya, our main character, his dad committed suicide in the opening scenes of the film, so he hasn't got anyone to go home to. We know that his best mate Nobu, although now he is, he's dead.
He hasn't got so much to worry.
He also comes from the children's home and the orphanage. Yeah, we know that. One of the female characters, we're going to find out she ain't got much to go home to because of how she's been treated by her step-parents. And in fact, none of them seem to have any kind of familial relationships at all. There's no siblings, there's no parents really mentioned. The only person who seems to be a parent, and we don't know this yet, is Kitano, who has a very strange relationship with his daughter and a paternal relationship with one of the students. So it seems like a strange promise because the only characters we know about with a family, you wouldn't want to go back to them, or there's no one to go back to. But then this talks to that there is something about this film. There are a lot of characters, there are a lot of kids here. There are 50 kids? Yeah. And we only learn about a handful of them in any kind of depth. So I guess the assumption is that the others are well, there's this dichotomy in the film where it doesn't actually make a lot of sense why they've turned up to the school trip if they haven't been to school for a year, and actually have they all really been bad kids? And the answer's probably not. Just a handful of them have been. So a lot of it really confuses me and doesn't make a lot of sense. But I guess you stop thinking about it too deeply and you think, well, if I was a kid of that age, what are they? 14, 15, 16? 15, I think they're meant to be, aren't they? I think some of the actors really were 15 at the time. It's a funny time, even for Japanese kids. Yeah, that's a time where you are kind of breaking out and escaping from your parents. You're acting out. You're learning how to be an adult, but you're still very much a child that needs their parents' protection. And these guys have no protection from anybody. And again, because it's a Japanese film, the concepts of family and family life are even more codified. You know, how the perfect family is meant to be. This is completely against those social structures which we take for granted, I guess, normally.
Yeah. Obviously, when we looked at Katana, though, I mean, he's quite happy just to belittle these kids. He does not really care. I mean, he basically yells at them at one point, it's because you're all useless. So, and I have to say, Nick, I mean, are you familiar with, like, the work of Takashi Takano? I mean, obviously, for myself and Stephen, he's someone we watch a lot of his work, but for someone who obviously doesn't sort of just watch Asian cinema, I mean, is he someone who sort of like springs up on your sort of radar, or is he someone you've never really watched before, other than Battle Royale?
Surprisingly, yes. It didn't dawn on me until like a couple minutes in when I saw him. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is Otomo from Outrage. Like, I really like Outrage and Beyond Outrage. So I saw him and I'm like, oh, I'm happy to see this guy. I don't know how it's going to go, but I'm happy to see him because I think it's been like 5 or 6 years since I've seen this film. So this was also a nice chance to rewatch and almost like re-experience it. But I definitely, certain scenes I look forward way to more than others. But yeah, it was definitely pleasant to see Katana in here.
It was the main reason I was excited for the American remake of Ghost in the Shell as well. When I saw that he was in the cast as the captain, I was like, "Oh my god, Pete Takashi's in this!" I would totally watch that.
Very nice. I have not, but I have the original anime. Okay. I just need to watch it. It's sitting on my shelf, and I'm like, I'm gonna watch you one day.
It's good.
Well, that day has not come yet.
I mean, obviously the anime's in a class of its own, but for what they've done in terms of Hollywoodizing that story. I think that it was very well done, but I think at the same time, a lot of the anime fans and the fact that they cast Scarlett Johansson as the Major, I think it just put a lot of people's backs up before they even saw the film. But I think it's a very good adaptation of a complex anime, to say the least.
Okay.
And go back and listen to episode 1 of the Asian Cinema Film Club if you want to hear what we said about it. Segue.
Where it all began. Many moons ago now, it feels like. Now, when we obviously get into the class, I mean, obviously first out of the gate is Akamatsu, who's the fat kid. And he's basically, I mean, he's one of the few characters in this film whose character doesn't differ from, like, if you read in the book or the manga. He's the same throughout. I mean, he's just basically the fat bullied kid who's also the first to realize that, you know, this isn't going to be one of those sort of situations where nobody's going to refuse to fight. We're now giving people a chance to settle a lot of the scores, and in particular being the bully kid, he assumes that those same bullies are going to come after him, only now they're armed. So he sort of becomes he's one of the most sort of like paranoid straight out of the gates, and we see very much how he responds to the situation when we get into our next chapter. But when it comes to these bags, I mean, we look at the 2 transfer students in particular, like Kawada, who's the veteran of the previous games, and he's just there in what appears to be his prison outfit, but he has this real sort of air of like control about him as he like grabs his bag and he goes like charging out the room, and then we see as soon as he leaves the room, he walks down the hallway. And the same can be also said for other when we look at Kiriyama, who's apparently here to play the game for fun, and with his anime hair, and both of those seem to be completely unfazed by the situation. I think mainly because they know what's going into it. But how did we obviously think when we look at the scene where Kawada basically goes out of the room and then comes back and changes his bag? Do we think that this is because that he knows what's in that particular bag, or do you think he's checked to see what weapon he's got and thought, yeah, I ain't going with this, I'm going to go and get something better?
I think it's I think it definitely confirms what we figure out early on in the film, is that he and the other guy have been planted. But I think it's a weight thing. I think in the moment when you're running and there's that adrenaline, you're running, you're just trying to get out and get your positioning. But then he stops and he's like, hold on, and he goes back. And I'm thinking maybe when he get back in, or when he came back into the fold, they promised him, like, hey, you're going to start with X or Y. Or it could just be like, you know what? I don't care. Like, I've done it before. Maybe they're going to cut me a break. Like, here we go. I mean, even Katana's character, he breaks the rules in the beginning by taking out 2 students. And he even says, like, oh, I broke the rules. Oops. So it makes you wonder, like, he clearly lets him go, and he lets him get away with it. So it makes you wonder, like, what else is he going to let people get away with?
Definitely so. I mean, it's funny the fact that we have all these sort of rules in place, because when we get out into the field of play, basically everything's it's an open field. I mean, basically you can go and do anything you want, as long as you're obviously staying within those danger zones.
I will also have to bring up my constant complaint, but this will be the last time, that how come these 2 guys are boys 5 and 6 if they are new transfer
I don't know what your
students to the
obsession with
class.
these numbers
is true.
I just never thought about this.
The numbers, they're given numbers, right? The 2 new guys should be at the end of the list. Because this numbering, they do this in the Japanese schools. You'll be student 5. It's usually alphabetical, I assume, or something like that. But it's that number, something you'll go by. So they won't be 5 and 6. They will be 24 and 25. And there should be a gap where, there isn't a gap, because we have the Nobu has a number. I can't remember what his number is, but he's killed off and his number's listed. So these 2 should not be this number. Right, that's the last time I'm going to mention it. I think I've mentioned it in at least 3 episodes, and that's it. But it's we talked a couple of episodes ago, where nothing in a film is there by mistake. Everything there is written. Everything is planned, and this just seems like stupid. But I think it's the same in the manga and the novel as well.
Yeah,
I think they have the same
but at the same time.
So
I don't know if it was...
No, Karen, no, please, Karen.
Well, I was going to say, to go on with this complaint, I don't know if you've addressed it in the other episodes as well, but what happened to the original Boy 5 and Boy 6 then? If all of a sudden they're the new 5 and 6, the other guys get axed back, do something else, or...
Exactly. Is there a Battle Royale 3 where the 2 boys who forgot to go on the school trip going to do something else? Yes, it's like a Clark's-esque comedy where the 2 stoner boys who forgot to go on did something else that day. I'd pay to watch that.
And then again, too, like when she's going through the rules, or when she goes listing everybody's names, she knows who she's calling. She knows 5 and 6, so how far in advance was this planned? It can't be a live presentation, because they pause it at points.
And I've mentioned that before as well. That doesn't make sense. Are they doing one of these for every single thing? I mean, again, I think we're meant to assume this is an annual event, right. not happening multiple times. But yeah, they absolutely put that presentation together for this class, almost as if they knew students 4 and 5 weren't going to turn up, or 5 and 6 weren't going to turn up anyway. Because she names them, doesn't she, as they go off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, obviously, it's only a movie. I shouldn't get so upset about it. But it's just
so interesting.
It's just weird, because everything else, other things we've seen in the film, other things have been put together with precision. And and even things like the weapons people get and stuff like that, it's all very carefully put together so to play out later. That is just a weird thing. But I promise never to mention it again. Well, maybe
this episode.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when we look at these two characters, though, in both the novel and the manga, they're already in the class. I mean, Kawada, as we mentioned back in episode 2, he was actually put back into the class, and it's only because he got held back a year that he ended up back in the program again. So it's sort of bad luck for himself, whereas Kiriyama is already part of the class as well, so both of them were already classmates, which would make the numbers being called would make more sort of sense. And maybe it was something that was sort of like changed, that they needed to give these characters more of an edge for the film version, and that they forgot, oh wait a minute, they're going to be called up in the register, and they thought, well, nobody's going to notice it, maybe like one guy on some podcast over like 20 years later will pick up on it. But
well,
I can't
you.
believe I'm the first person to make notice it.
breaking ground. It obviously you're familiar with the book and the manga. Is there mystery and not intrigue? Obviously, this whole thing is fascinating, intriguing. But is there any mystery in the novel and the manga? Because maybe they want to add a little bit more of like mystery and like, oh, there's a twist kind of thing to it. So this way, not only are you engaged in trying to see who's going to survive, but you're also trying to figure out like, hey, who are these people? Like, who are these two guys?
Oh, and with these two guys, their backstories, along with many of the other students, is a lot more filled out because you obviously have the space to fill it out. I mean, in a film, you aren't exactly constructing something like June here, where you can have like elaborate storylines for every single character. I mean, we got an hour and a half of film to fill here, so you can't film the backstory of every single character. They tend to reserve it for like the main ones in the film. But when we look at Kiriyama, he was this kind, loving student, and then he loses his mother in a car crash, as we mentioned on the previous episode, and he just becomes numb to the world. And this is where he ends up in this sort of serial killer state, whereas in the film, he's just brought in as this delinquent who likes to kill people for fun. And Kawada is very much just the same. He's just a veteran from the previous games, but in the book and the manga, he's been drafted back into the school system as his and essentially set up to continue his life. But obviously, with the scars of being in the Battle Royale program, it affects him so that he's obviously held back a year and then just inadvertently drafted back in. So it was never the plan to put a veteran in. It's just something that happened because of his life choices.
Which, again, doesn't make any sense, right? I mean, they picked the same school 2 years running, and these kids didn't notice the class above them are all dead.
But they first off, Stephen,
True.
They never turn up to school. And we also have our running conspiracy that Kitano is the reason that they're, because nobody stabbed him in the ass. So that his revenge on this class, because he was obviously a teacher at the school, him getting stabbed was like the final straw, and he disappears off for the year and becomes part of the Battle Royale program as the program administrator. So it would make perfect sense for him just to draft this class in as his revenge against them, even though it's never directly addressed. It's all under the illusion that it's this lottery that the class have been chosen by, but maybe Kawada went for a different school and he thought, I'm drafted to a new town and whatnot, I can have a new start, and it just happens that was the town that they're drafting for this year's lottery.
Maybe we need to get out of this classroom because I'm picking it apart. And we need death.
Now, I mean, when we look at Shuya when he goes and gets his bag, did you notice that Kitano turns away and he's facing towards the blackboard, and he's not doing that for anyone else who lives there? It's almost like he can't look at Shuya's. He's almost dealing with sort of like the guilt that he killed Nobu. He can't look at Shuya directly in the face as he sort of like sets off on his sort of course. He just turns his back on him completely, and every other class member, he's there and he watches them go, and for a few he taunts them as well.
And then that never even dawned on me. I just, okay, that's interesting.
No, I had noticed that as well, but you're probably right because he knows, Kitano knows those two are best buddies. And maybe there's a flicker of guilt.
Because we get that, and we also get the scene shortly after he kills him, where he's sort of like, where he says, "I strangely respected him," which is just this throwaway line, and it just makes me wonder. It's all like, yeah, I mean, but nobody stabbed you in the ass. I mean, I don't understand what you particularly respect about Nobu, but certainly with this whole like second part of the classroom scene, I think it really establishes there's a lot of innocence in this. That the fact they're on this island, not all of them are going to become killers instantly, and you even have the girl who throws her pack away, which is a protest move, certainly, but a stupid one.
Well, unless she had a vase of flowers as her weapon, but she's missing out on the flashlight and stuff like that. But that was kind of interesting, and again, something that wasn't explored anymore in the film. I can't remember what happens to her.
I think that she's she's one of the students who kills herself. I want to say,
yeah.
But it reminded me of like this time I was at the station. This woman missed her train. That she got the doors were closed, and she threw a coffee at the train. And I sat there watching. It's like, you're really going to want that in a minute.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it's great to make this great statement, but I mean, it's not going to change the situation here. You're still going to be stuck on the island. You still got potentially 48 other people who want to kill you on the island, and you just basically thrown away your one possible advantage you had. So yeah, it never really made particular sense why she would want to do that, but it's her choice at the end of the day.
Unless maybe in her head she's like, if I do this, then other people are going to see it. They're going to do it too. But the rest of the class was like, no.
When has that ever worked though? Like whenever you've like had this in your mind, you and the class are going to like throw this big protest. When has that ever worked in real life?
Oh, never. Never.
But I think certainly in these last sort of moments of the sort of classroom sequence, we do see a lot of humanity with these sort of students. They're not all sort of working out their game plan straight off. I think at this stage everyone's still very much still confused by the situation. I think they still can't believe that it's real, would you say?
Oh, absolutely. And especially, it's just, I mean, even when they see like their student's two dead bodies in the class, and even when the first student kind of makes that turn, he stops and he sees all the soldiers and he like is shocked and they just shout at him like, run, get out of here. And then, I don't know. And I think it's after that moment when it happens because everybody starts, being friends and like, hey, we're friends, remember me. And even some of them, when they grab their bags, like they hold them up like, we're going to make it through. We're going to get this. And I think that's when it happens, when the first kid gets yelled at.
I love the fact that soldiers just yell at the students.
That's it.
But yeah, it's so bizarre when you see like students soldiers who are like willing to just force children into this game. It's such a bizarre circumstance, and I can't help but wonder: is it because the world has become so absolutely shitty with like the youth uprising and employment at this low that they have such faith in the Battle Royale Act to sort of restore the balance?
I mean, yeah, one of the things we don't really get to hear about is, I think this has been going on for a number of years. The Battle Royale was passed at some point. There have been a number of Battle Royales that have happened. We know of at least 2, right?
Yes.
And in fact, that doesn't make any... Oh, no, yeah. So we have the young girl in the opening shot who survives, and I guess she'll go...
she would turn up in Battle Royale 2 as one of the Wild 7.
And I'm guessing our returnee was from last year, because there's been a year's gap. So this is at least the 3rd iteration. I wonder if they've paid any thought to, is it making things any better? Because the fact the kids don't seem to know about it probably means this is a fairly pointless exercise. And they don't need to know about it. No one seems to be watching it on TV to understand. There's no doesn't seem to be like a big media interest in it. And maybe that's because this film was made in 2000, probably just before the sort of the world of Big Brother and reality TV taking off. I wonder if they made it today, if it would have a slightly different bent. The same way that a book's written at a very similar time, but apparently have no connection to it, in the Hunger Games, with a very similar kind of idea, did take the concept of it being a reality show different ways. Yeah, I wonder if they remade it today, whether they'd take it in a slightly different direction.
Well, I mean, the Battle Royale, when you look at the Hunger Games, they change it every year, like the location and what their twist is going to be. Because I know in the book that they tried once in like a snow setting, but all the contestants just froze to death, and it didn't make it interesting information. And another year they just give them all like hand-to-hand combat weapons, like heavy maces to bludgeon each other to death with. And when it comes to Battle Royale, it seems that they have the same setup every year. So
yes, it's this island. I mean, it's different in the book, isn't it? I think you've mentioned it before in the book or in the manga.
Yeah, in the manga they basically take over an island and shuffle everyone off, so that they can take it over and carry out the game. So I think certainly the location changed, but I don't think, being Japan, there's nowhere to sort of like have the sorts of extremes in change. It's not like if we set it in America, and then we could obviously have any number of different sort of settings. Similarly, you could like put it out in Texas and have it out in the desert. You could go up to the Great White North and have it in like the cold, or you could have it in Portland and just have to deal with the rain. So there's a number of options.
You do have gradation. It is very cold up north, and it can be quite balmy down south. And obviously, you've got lots of islands and things like that. But yeah, it's not like America or Europe or something like that, where you can absolutely change it up phenomenally. But in the Hunger Games again, the audience can get involved, can't they? They're able to send extra resources to their favourite contestants, and there's none of that interactivity going on here, but it all seems to be happening in the dark, and so they've killed 50 kids, and they're going to kill 50 next year. They're going to kill 50, but 50's nothing, in the big scheme of things. It's nothing. It's not going to affect any population. Who is getting anything out of this? If it doesn't instill fear in the children, because they didn't seem to know it was going to happen, so it's not going to change their behaviour. If it's not being turned into some amazing, what's the word? The patriotic fervour for it or anything like that. I just wonder what the point is. Maybe it's just about just sadists wanting to watch kids kill each other.
Well, I think the program in place is the higher ups in the government feel like it's going to make some difference, but as far as like executing it and seeing it through, I think it's all for Katano's benefit. He's just like, he's like, all these asshole kids all this time, and guess what? Now I'm the ultimate. He's like, now I want you to know your demise is because of me. He's like, you're not going to ruin my life anymore, but guess what? All of yours are ruined. And then off it goes. I mean, there is some coverage. Like they see in the very beginning of the film, we see, whoever's last, they're coming out to, revelry and applause and everything. But that's really it. Although it makes you wonder, where was the press? Well, I guess after they come back from the island, that's when they would have the revelry and everything. But there is some interest, but I guess we don't see such a global social impact on it.
No, I mean certainly in the both the book and the manga. I mean, it's seen that the idea the government has is that the survivor is going to be seen as this shining beacon of the lengths the government will go to restore order. So it's more just a political ploy. It's kind of like with the Purge. The Purge covers this illusion that they're making a difference by having everyone get their violent impulses, but really it's just about population control. Spoiler alert if you've not watched the Purge films then. So. I think that it's what on the surface. I think it's really It's been designed to be this sort of extreme act to like show that the government are doing something, but I think ultimately it's just more just a political play than an effective actual means. Because as you said, Stephen, I mean, the kids don't have a clue what's going on because they're too wrapped up in their own nonsense. So, just like the darn millennials.
Yeah, and all you're going to get out of it is every year create one disaffected kid that's been involved in 49 other deaths. And indeed, we meet one of them in this film, don't we? And we meet others in the sequel. All you're creating is people who will be against it. There's no great prize other than life. Yeah, if there was a prize that I think you said at the beginning, you know, the only prize they've got is that you go home to your parents, which doesn't actually seem that attractive to half the kids in this class. Wouldn't it? It's all stick and no carrot, and that doesn't seem a very long term tenable scheme. But then the whole thing doesn't seem a very long term tenable scheme, does it? Killing people like that, I guess, ain't really going to work long term.
Yep. Well, I wonder if it's like they wanted to, and I'm just speculating here and just trying to come up with something, but I wonder if it's supposed to be like a ripple effect kind of thing where one who survived, now they have a better appreciation for life, and then off they go on and so forth, and it's supposed to just continue to ripple, and then everybody will start to change and society will start to change. Maybe that's something they're kind of going for, but I mean, it's not going to happen.
You have to just wonder is like what the people that this program puts out. I mean, they got to be some it's got to be the sort of experience that really sort of messes you up for life. Really, that it's not the sort of ideal model citizen you're going to produce through this. It's sort of like, oh look, we got young Shuya here. He killed 48 of his fellow classmates.
Yeah, you're not going to get on the book tour, are you, on this? A speaking engagement. Hey, it's the survivor of Battle Royale 7.
That'd be like the greatest Big Brother guest ever.
That was my favorite season.
And then we'll have all sorts of other variants of it, won't we? We'll have it in drag, we'll have it in different countries.
I love the fact drags where your mind goes to, not like, oh, maybe they do like different weapons, or they do like older kids, or they do boys versus girls. No, drags where your mind went to first.
I'm just being modernist about it. That is what would happen, wouldn't it? There would be RuPaul's Battle Royale. There would have to be.
That I would pay to see.
It's insanely unpopular.
You say that now, but then when it starts happening, someone's going to be raking in the money.
No, you go first, Nick.
All I was going to say was I always find it funny that I don't have the most experience with Asian cinema or anime or manga for that matter, but some of the anime I have watched and other cinema I have watched, it's always that one kid with like the crazy, wild up, different colored hair, usually in that black tracksuit looking thing that's always the crazy one. And I feel like as soon as he shows up, everyone's like, oh no, he's going to be insane. And then he ends up being the insane person running around with an Uzi the entire time, grinning from ear to ear. And I just think that it's funny that such a cliche character has been around since the 2000s, if not before, because I assume that this manga was out a couple years before the film.
I mean, what you've got to remember, Japanese society is very structured. They don't, as a rule, celebrate the different. You know, the rebels. They exist, of course they exist. You know, it's not a perfectly ordered society over there.
Right.
But yes, that trope exists. That guy's got crazy hair, and he, I don't know, wears eyeliner or anything which probably we wouldn't bat an eyelid at anymore. Although we might have done in the 50s or in the 60s. So imagine Japanese society maybe 20 years behind us, and in some ways 200 years behind us. But that absolutely will be a very valid trope that you spotted, yeah? Not just in manga and in anime, but in live action as well. We will see that the the crazy kid. I think we saw it in Death Note as well. Actually, another film that we looked at, Elwood. The character with the character who looks like he stepped out of an anime, frankly, as you call it, is going to be the crazy kid because he's not conforming. He's not wearing school uniform. He's not wearing, they look at them, their school uniform. It's all exactly the same. The haircuts are all exactly the same. Apart from these people, and therefore they're not part of society. So they're given license to act crazily in media, in fictions. So I think that's a very valid point, and we've seen it over and over and over again, and Japan especially so because it's so. It's their society is so structured and orderly, and unlike what we're used to in the West, where since the 50s, since James Dean, we've grown to love our rebels. Yeah, our rebels are our heroes. Our rebels are who we aspire to be. Whereas in Japan, the rebel is the outsider. Not to be admired, but to be mistrusted.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. I like that response.
You're welcome. And all our Japanese fans will come and say it's not like that at all. No, I'm pretty certain something. There's a lot to that.
I still look at this film and wonder how they've considered the idea of making an American remake of this. It's just an absolute feat of filmmaking. Just the fact that you've got 50-odd characters who've all got identifiable personalities, who've got backstories and personal goals and plot lines and stories, and you expect somehow to transfer this over to the American style of filmmaking is just absolutely astounding. That let alone the content of this film, that you would think you could even transfer this across. I mean, we have enough problems with adults engaging in violence, never mind children engaging in violence, and certainly when we look at how crazy the world is at the moment, and certainly for our friends over in the States, that it seems like there was that period where it seemed like every week there was another high school shooting happening. So I was surprised you guys even got Battle Royale, to be honest, the fact that it somehow managed to get over there. So,
but it didn't get a cinema release, did it?
No. Yeah, I just read through it. Only ever hit festivals randomly, but even then, it really didn't hit festivals till 2009, 2010. This film was released a couple months after Columbine had happened, and Columbine was the first big catalyst. And no studio would touch it. They were like, nope, not at all, no, nothing. And then finally, it started coming around, and I don't think it's ever had an official theatrical release, maybe in LA or New York or something like that, one of those major markets. But I would totally go see this in theater. If they did a midnight screening and everybody's just hooting and hollering, hanging out, I'd be there in a heartbeat. But that'll probably never happen, ever.
I that's what you guys at French Till Sunday need to get on. Hold the first American screening.
Yeah, once they allow everybody to start going back to, I'm going to movie theater, but once people are more comfortable going to a movie theater and everything like that, but who knows?
In someone's backyard or something. I don't know. You guys all got huge houses and land, and myself and Steven don't have huge.
It's not that big. A couple of us are in row home, townhome type things, but we do have some friends. We've been having backyard drive-ins. So last weekend they had a big tarp and a projector, and we all hung out in their yard and watched Face Off.
Oh, nice.
That was really, really good. Occasionally the gang and I will do we'll all watch a movie on Zoom together where we're all on Netflix and we just count 3, 2, 1, click. And we've watched some really good stuff there. But I definitely think that now something like this, now that we know, hey, we can just go outside with a projector and watch whatever we want. I think that's going to make it fun to watch other things like that and have a different kind of experience, for better or for worse. But I think it'll always be for better.
Well, this brings us to the end of another edition of the Battle Royale podcast. Thank you as always for listening, and thank you very much to our special guest tonight, Mr. Nick Rehak, for joining us.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you guys so much for inviting me.
I would say, I mean, at the moment, I know things are kind of crazy out in the world, and especially in the blogging community. But I mean, for yourself, have you got any sort of projects coming up?
Not particularly. I've been a guest on occasion on the Exploding Helicopter podcast. We have an episode on the other guys coming out in the coming weeks. But outside of that, no, man, I'm just kind of hanging out. And if somebody wants to talk about, be it Battle Royale or, anything, I'm there. Just hit me up. Say, hey, Nick, I'll start talking. I love hearing myself talk. It's that American narcissism for you, man.
And if people obviously want to come and find your bits, obviously there's French Toast Sundays. Anywhere else that you got stuff out, or?
Not yet. So just for the time being, FrenchToastSunday.com.
Fantastic. As for ourselves, if you haven't done already, you please do hit the like and subscribe button wherever you happen to be listening to us. Maybe leave us a review, as it all helps raise the profile of the show. You should also check out our main show, which is the Asian Cinema Film Club, which you can find on anywhere that good podcasts are found. You can also check out our full archive episodes, not only for this show, but for that show as well, at asiancinemafilmclub.wordpress.com. We're also on Facebook and Instagram as well, and in particular our Facebook group has just become a really fun hub of discussion, and me posting bits from the Godzilla collection on there, so definitely lots of good bits to check out on there. And certainly also on our blog we also have the Movie Vault series hosted by David Brooke. We've got Steven's Dark Sides of Asian Cinema, and we have the mixtape, as well as other fun bits of reviews and things on there as well. But coming up over on the Asian Cinema Film Club, on our most recent episode, we looked at the Bruce Lee breakout classic, The Big Boss, one of the more unique entries in his small filmography, where he spends a good 30 minutes just avoiding fighting, making for a very unique filming experience indeed. But you can check that out. Just look up Asian Cinema Film Club, and you should be able to find that pretty easy. But again, thank you to Nick for joining us. Thank you to my co-host Stephen, and we will be back next time with our next chapter, Memories. But until then, good night.